वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
I want to start the class with Carl's last question, and he says, now what does it mean that Brahmavid Kule, so in that person's home there is always never going to be somebody who does not know Brahman. Okay? Generally we define family as what? The family in which we are born into. Okay? But there is another family which is what? Guru's family, Guru Kulam. Kulam means family, and what? The Kulam of Guru. Okay? So that means that there are many different people who claim themselves to be Gurus. Like there are many families. Some families where you have conducive environment, and some families what? You have dysfunctional environment, normal families. In Guru's family also what? There are ranges of Gurus who make different kinds of families. Imagine the Guru himself who forms a family, who forms a community, who the community which follows him or her, himself or herself is misguided. What is the consequence? Distortion. Amazing distortions. Sometimes your distortions are taken to a more intense level than the starting point. You have come to get rid of your starting point distortions, but in the process you have compounded your distortions. And it is giving you an illusion that you are progressing. So you want to go deeper into it. What kind of Gurukulam is this? Dangerous. Because while you are increasing your distortions, you feel you are becoming more spiritual. Now, let's say you come to a guru who is not totally deluded. You come to a guru who has studied all this. And now you come to another type of guru who is a good person. But the person has not studied anything properly. So he himself has his own ideas. But he is a good human being. What kind of family you are into? It will help you. So that it will not, a good human association with any good human being will help you in some ways. But will it be able to help you totally? Right? So it may help you partially to fix some aspects, okay, but it will still not bless you totally. Now imagine that you have come to a guru who has studied Shastra. Okay. So that means the person has taken time and effort to expose oneself to Shastra. But everybody who exposes to Shastra doesn't necessarily mean they all understand it all equally. Okay. Last night I was talking to Neeru and she was saying, what are your classmates doing? Right? So I said, yeah, they are all teaching. They said, where are they all? So I said, yeah, they are all in their own little villages or in towns or in cities. They are all dispersed all over. They are all teaching. Okay. Now, each one is teaching, but how much that person has understood, it all varies. Okay. But I also told her that even if, let's say, the person has not totally understood, at least for the students who don't know anything, it is adequate. At least the person has exposed oneself to a certain methodology, a certain thing. So even though it's not totally complete, it is something which is still very useful for those students. Okay, because from where they operate, it is still what? A long leap forward. Okay? So therefore, now that Gurukulam is much more functional. Like every family without, there are degrees of what? Healthy family. Similarly, there are degrees of what? Healthy Gurukulams. Either your teacher is totally misguided, or your teacher is a good human being but is not exposed to the methodology, or the teacher is exposed to methodology but has not totally got the picture. Okay? Or imagine, by grace of Ishvara, you are connected to a teacher who has not only exposed oneself to this knowledge but has got it fully. Who is the luckiest? The last one. The luckiest because for those students, the possibility of knowing is what? Maximum. Doesn't ensure that in this lifetime everybody will get it, but at least what? The starting point is a correct starting point, and each step forward is what? The step in the right direction. And this is why when you come to a teacher and you come with your own ideas, a right teacher is, the teacher's responsibility is, if your thinking is faulty, the teacher says, oh, everybody is equally right. My God, that would be an irresponsible teacher. Because if there is something called limitless and your understanding is not exactly limitless, what is your understanding? If it is not limitless, what is your understanding? Limited. Okay? Between limited and limitless, what is the distance?
Limitless.
Limitless distance, right? So that means, in the name of compassion, I let your thinking be whatever it is and not ensure that it is accurate. Am I doing service? Disservice. Teacher's job is, you can't, if the students have come to you by what? The order. They are brought to them, right? That connection is made by the order. Then, as long as you are here, the teacher's responsibility is what? To remove your notions and make you see the reality as accurately as possible. So shedding is a very, very important process of learning. Shedding your wrong ideas, shedding your wrong opinions. Not letting you hold on to something vaguely and think you understand. That's the job of a teacher.
How can we know if it is a good teacher?
Yeah, how do you know? Wonderful. How does one know it's a good teacher or not?
When you understand and makes sense, when responds to our question or
Very good, right? You never cease to question. Okay. So that means your commitment is not to a teacher, your commitment is what? To the truth, to the knowledge. What happens is, unfortunately, very often people get attached to their teachers. It is like being attached to my primary teacher who did have a particular function in my growth. But I said, I'm so attached to my teacher, I don't want to move to secondary school. The teacher I can respect, but what is my real intention in learning? When I have got the learning from that person, I need to then move on. Okay? And how do I know that now with this teacher, in fact, two things. One is that very nice. You always have to ask the question, and as long as the teacher can make you see certain things in a different light, which is non-negatable, continue. This is exactly, if you remember, my first day, I went to my teacher and asked, how do I know Vedanta is the truth? What was his answer?
Refute it logically.
Yeah, until you can refute it, listen to it. What is your loss? Anyway, what it says is something which is beautiful, that you are the whole. That is his confidence. He is not saying, oh no, that is the truth. He has no pressure in proving the validity of Vedanta. You expose it and see what it has to show you. And if the teacher is capable, even if your buddhi is not totally capable, okay, you can see the commitment of the teacher is to really make you see things and not just to create ideas in the vacuum.
Relative to Monica's question.
Yes.
When a person doesn't want to question things or doesn't want to know more, how to know that it's the right teacher? Because if you not question things, you attach to
Everything. Exactly. And you attach to everyone. So this is why inbuilt in the teaching is this questioning process. Did you notice that? If you don't have questions, the tradition raises questions. Right? So that means that the teacher will create questions in you. That is the whole teaching. In Bhagavad Gita, right? When Lord Krishna is teaching, there is a student, and that student, whether it is a real student, Arjuna, or an imaginary student, that student has a question. So inbuilt in this teaching is what? A teacher who is unfolding and a student who has questions. So even if you don't have questions, when Arjuna is asking his questions, you will say, oh yeah, I also want to know this. Because it is not brainwashing, but the whole tradition includes questioning. It's very integral part. Even Upanishads are mostly in form of a dialogue. There is a student and then there is a teacher. Okay? So a good teacher is what? Raising those questions and answering those questions so that it contributes to what? Your clarity. Okay? And while you are learning, You always, because you not always, sometimes most of the time people don't have that sophisticated mind. They just tend to accept whatever the teacher says. Okay? In that case, one prays, one uses one free will to say, take my mind in the right direction. Because I don't even know whether to assess. Sometimes I don't even have that much capacity to assess who's saying the right thing and who's not saying the right thing. And that can be your teacher. Connect me to the person who can show me the reality. Do a prayer. You can always use your free will to help yourself in form of a prayer to that Ishvara, all-knowing reality. Ask for the teacher who knows the reality. This is how life takes you forward. So imagine you are in a kulam with the grace of Ishvara, where the teacher knows. That itself is a huge thing. Please don't underestimate the power of finding the right teacher who understands the reality accurately and will not create notions which are not in keeping with reality, and who has the courage to say that, hey, this is not true, and this is why it is not true. Shows you the reason behind it, right? Not just, oh, you don't know anything. No. That is the real teacher. Teacher's job is to help each one shed their ideas. But in that shedding of ideas, what happens is, if my personal ideas get shedded, what happens? And if I'm attached to those ideas, and if I'm attached to the people from whom I receive those ideas, what happens? Two things happen. There is resistance to taking those ideas, new ideas, which shake your own present ideas, and second, which is even bigger problem, and that is that you start projecting on the teacher, right? And you start thinking that the teacher is insulting my this thing, the teacher is totally orthodox, it's only one-minded, is totally known and compassing to everyone. So you project certain attributes on teachers which don't exist. And this is why, before every learning situation, sahana bhavatu, sahanam bhunattu, saha viryam karavavahe, tejasvina adhitamastu mavid dvishavahe. Protect us, nourish us, let both of us make an effort, let our study be brilliant, let there not be any obstacles. Before every class. Because any time the mind can go on a tangent. Okay. So this is why, if you come to a kulam where the teacher knows the reality, then you are much more closer to this final truth. If one person has not finished in this life, then what will happen? The person will connect and will finish it in some other life. But at least you don't have wrong information. You are not misguided. Now, the third one. What is a Sushupta Sthanaha? Yeah. So now the 11th verse, which says, Sushupta Sthanaha Prajnaha Makara Tritiya Matra Mitehe Piteva Minoti Hava Idam Sarvam Apitischa Bhavati Ya Evam Veda. Okay. So here he says the Prajna which is this Sushupta Sthanaha, okay, whose sphere is deep sleep, is the third letter Makara, because both are measured and also because in it both are absorbed, He who knows this is able to measure all this universe and becomes the place of absorption of all. Okay? What does it mean? Okay? Now, in the waking, there is the full you available. Sushupti, all three parts. The Sthula, Sukshma and Karana. Causal. Okay. In deep sleep, only Sukshma and causal, and in deep sleep, what? Only causal. Okay. So now in that causal, because you can say, how do I know there is causal? So you are given an experience. What is that causal? In which the physical and subtle resolve in your awareness. Okay? But the very fact that you come back again, that means what? The causes for you to experience the new day with your physical body and subtle body, reconnected to your physical and subtle body, are still there, but what? In a dormant state. So therefore, the causal is something, the deep sleep is where there is a resolution. Okay? But from that resolution, what happens? There is again connection, again to physical and subtle body. Okay? So this is what, and then makara means when you pronounce a given word for a given form, what happens? You have to close your mouth. What is the last sound which comes when you finish pronouncing a given word? You close it. You start, you open your mouth. Exactly. Okay? So that is what we call makara. You open the mouth. Then you close the mouth, and in between it is what? So that means that makara is what? Equivalent to what? The resolution of what? That given, that form that you were expressing is now what? Ended. And in between the next pronunciation of next form, what is there? There is this. Just silence. Right? Then you start a new word. How do you start? Then ma, and in between. Okay? So this makara, what it does, why is it equated to Sushupti Sthanaha? Because it does two things, right? Both are measured by it, and also because in both are absorbed the other two. Okay? In deep sleep, the waker and the dreamer are what? Both not available. The physical and subtle are both not available. This is why, while sleeping, you don't actively think that I'm sleeping now, because that process is done by the subtle. Okay. So therefore, in that deep sleep state, the two are resolved. When makara is done, what? The whole word is over. That is the end of the word. From there comes the next beginning. Okay? So this is where our teacher was saying it's extremely important. Imagine you are pronouncing a word which is, let's say, manifestation. Okay? So manifestation, imagine I want to convey to you why it is said minoti. Minoti is a very important thing, right? So I want to convey the word manifestation to Preeti. Today I use the word mag. tomorrow I use the word knee, the third day I use the word fair, and the fourth day I use the word station. Well, what will she understand? That means not only I have to pronounce each part of these words, I have to pronounce it in what? At a certain time, and it has that duration. I can maybe prolong it slightly, but I can't prolong it over 5 days. It will not make sense. Okay? So closing of the mouth at the right time gives meaning to that form. It's a very important aspect of understanding anything. Okay. So therefore, that resolution itself plays a very important role. How much, what is the duration, when do you stop? Because if you don't stop at the right time in pronouncing a word, then you're not conveying the meanings accurately. Okay? So this makara, the closing of the word at the right time and the speed with which you talk is something which gives, it has its own role to play in creating meanings. Same thing. Imagine you were given only waking and dream and no deep sleep. What would happen? People who don't sleep, what happens? They go and see a psychiatrist. They go crazy. You need that resolution. That is the great both psychological relief. It is a great what? It's a time that the body repairs itself physically. Mentally you are given a break from your crazy thinking. That adds to sanity. And that is, as Neeru keeps saying, that every clue that is required is given to you here and now. If you did not have the experience of deep sleep, you will never know what the causal is. But because that deep sleep is given to you, where you every day experience yourself without the presence of physical and subtle body, and you still come back the next day with certain causes which makes me come back only to my body and not to her body. That means there are some latent, dormant causes which are again manifesting, which were unmanifest, which are then manifested the next day in form of yet another day. Okay. So you need that resolution for your physical health, for your psychological health, for your cognitive health and your cognitive understanding of things. So that means deep sleep, don't think is resolution is just like resolution. It is a very important part of what? Living. So makara plays a very important role in what? Forming that word and giving its meaning, and deep sleep also plays a very important role in your life of sanity and life of understanding of realities. Okay. So this is where, by which everything is measured.
Also, can we say that only limited things can be measured? So, in a way, because when you are understanding the law or the causal, you understand where it all ends and where it begins from. So it has a beginning and an end, all the forms.
Yeah, the forms, yeah, that's true. The forms, any form has again the beginning and an end. That is true, you can say that. That is another thing which is now, this is something that our teacher says, which I have to say. I'm not so particular myself, but our teacher says this is what you have to know. Okay? That he says that the word Om itself has 3 matras. Okay? So that means it is A, U and Ma, and it follows some rules of linguistics. Okay? So you don't, there is a tendency for people in the so-called spiritual circles to elongate Om. Okay? The word is Om. Okay? And imagine you make it into Om, and you elongate, which is like manifestation, which I have to say to make sense for you. Instead of saying, no, let me elongate further. So, me, ni. I make one whole long thing and I stretch it over 1 hour. This is what the musicians do sometimes. And you can listen to the whole song and you have no idea what the musician is saying. Because the musician is elongating much more than what is necessary, much more than what is comprehensible. So the word Om, you are doing it to this service if you elongate much more. It is one word, it has to be pronounced in that given manner. Om, that's all. Maybe you can use it slightly longer, but if you think that you will continue for 15 minutes, that is not, you are actually going against the rules of linguistics. You are not making it any more profound.
So I understand the beginning and end.
Exactly.
A subtle question though. What about words that don't have the A and the M sounding in the end? Not all words with. So is it a symbolic implication?
It's a symbolic implication.
So for example,
it's
the word
just
odd.
Yeah.
Won't have a A or a M.
Even when you say odd, there is this A with U which makes O. In the Sanskrit, for that, if you study Sanskrit, the O sound is a compound of A and U becomes O.
Okay. But cannot.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. No. But it is a figurative thing that when you open your mouth and when you close your mouth and in between that goes in mouth, that is the way you pronounce any word. And it includes all words.
So it's the implication.
It's the implication. Yes, exactly. And then every word has a beginning and it has the end, but at the right time.
Sure.
Not just
Whenever you
want it. Exactly. And that's how knowledge takes place.
Sure.
And that's how human mind, this is where when Monica at the end of the last class, she said that when you talk about these names, are you talking about Nama Rupa? And exactly. So there is in Vedanta Shastra, we use this thing, Nama Rupatmaka Jagat. Jagat means the universe. What is this universe? There is Rupa, there is forms, and then what? There is Nama. There are corresponding names for those forms. So then we use this terminology. Nama Rupatmakam Jagatam. Okay? Just as in order for that form to be what that form is, you have to have, as Surya says, that the stem cells can do many things. Okay? But for it to be a kidney, you need to have that function. And some others may be blocked. Okay? You can't have a kidney without, right, that particular configuration. Similarly, the names have to be pronounced properly and they have a given duration. Only then the knowledge takes place. So elongating, there is no wisdom in it. You think that you are becoming very spiritual because you are elongating Om. Actually, there is no wisdom in it.
There's only vibration.
Yeah.
The experience of that.
The experience of the vibration, but that is not considered to be, So that means the Om, if you pronounce proper Om, and you do Om, 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 you will also probably have better vibration. Because it follows the rules of linguistics. There is an order there, and you are respecting that order. So, this is what you say, ending becomes a very important part, both for what? The deep sleep state as well as the makara. Okay? And this is what he says. And then also because in that end, what? In the deep sleep, the waker and the dreamer is resolved. So both the potential is one place where the two states resolve, and in makara what happens? All the other sounds resolve, and it then what? Creates the end of that word, and then what? Beginning of, it gives its way to beginning of the new word. Okay. So then he says, he who knows this is able to measure all this universe. Okay. So that means again, when to stop, and this is something which is very nice, our teacher used to sometimes make fun. Okay? Now when he does some functions, he calls some VIP speakers, right? And the so-called VIP speakers are maybe sometimes politicians, sometimes actors, I mean whoever, industrialist or whatever. And they said, they start the speech by saying, okay, that I'm sure you all have come to hear words of wisdom from Swamiji. So I don't want to be in between you two. So I'm going to keep my speech very brief, short. And then they go on, and they go on, and they go on. Right? So when to stop is a very important skill also. Okay? So that starting and is equally important, using your free will in starting, and then what? When to, how to stop, when to stop, for how long to stop. In that also what? Is a lot of wisdom. So this is what he says. The one who is able to measure when to start, when to stop, itself is what? This is reflecting a mind which is not carried away with one's own whims and fancies, is in touch with what is required of me at what time and in what degree, and is able to measure everything accurately. That is a huge necessity for this knowledge to take place. All of you have questions. Do I go for 3.5-year course or not? My teacher. When do I go? At what point in my life do I go? After the course, what do I do? All these are what? When to start, when to stop. Constantly we are making decisions. Whether I go for the retreat or not, if I go, for how many days I go. All these are what? When do I start? When do I stop? These are all decisions that we have made. Please understand. Okay? Life is all about making those decisions. As much as you have to make decisions about starting, you also have to make decisions about stopping.
And at a larger level, at the level of even here, one situation or at the universe level, it's all about what is coming to manifestation, how long this coming to manifestation will be there, and then when it will go back to unmanifest. See? Same thing.
Same thing. Same thing it applies to Ishvara. Okay? How long this body is going to remain manifest. Laws. When this body is going to become unmanifest. Laws.
And how much of it? This is the idea of measure
And
also.
within this manifest body, one day what manifests? And next day what manifests? All part of the arrangement of Ishvara. What manifests, for how long, and in what manner?
When you look at it at that scale, it's just about everything.
It's about everything.
You can measure the whole
But
universe.
it's daily decisions.
Exactly.
I got it.
Absolutely.
What did you say?
You can measure the whole universe.
Yeah. And then imagine this entire manifest universe is what? Totally unmanifest, which is what we call that all knowledge and all power. When it is unmanifest, we call it what? Maya. And that for how long? And then when is the next manifestation? And within that next manifestation, each object lasts for how long? Resolution is extremely important part of this whole design of things. Both, as Surya very rightly said, as individual level and what at a cosmic level. Okay, so that means now Omkara includes what? A, U and Ma. What has it included?
Physical, subtle and causal.
Exactly. Physical, subtle and causal, and what? All the names. The starting of any name, the end of every name, in between what goes on, then that name giving rise to, but the end of that word giving rise to what? Another name. So that means the world is what? First, we have seen it from the standpoint of what? The forms. Now, what? In the form of names and what? The form and name, can you separate the two? Can you separate the names from forms? The name indicates that form. That's why we have different names for different forms. And as Surya says, those names and accurately identifying those names gives way to find out more realities for which we then need to create more names. The name computer did not exist. You look at Oxford Dictionary, what? 50 years ago. You didn't have objects for which you needed to have names. So you understand a few objects accurately and then you put them together. What do? You create new forms. Then for those new forms, you need to have what? New names. Infinite possibilities, names and forms. Okay? And they all follow the order. What? Physical, subtle and the causal. So when you say Om, please don't only think about forms, also include what? Names. Because names constitute a very important part of learning and expressing and then enabling the mind to move forward in its intricate thinking. Just simple thing like, you go to a yoga class, right? The first time I went to, somebody said, oh, Iyengar yoga is very, very sophisticated. And they use these words, now your core, I don't know what all names, and I was like, he's asking me to move one part of my body and I don't even know which part he's referring to. He has all these anatomy and he has all these names of which I am not at all aware. So he said, now move it slightly like this, but I don't even know what. Okay, so this is how you increase what? The more names means what? You increase your knowledge of that given object because the name refers to an object. So names are very much part of learning. Without names, there is no learning taking place. So now that Om includes everything, names and forms, and all the knowledge that is contained within. And then the whole pattern of manifestation and unmanifestation. That is the Om, which is Ishvara. What is the truth of that Om? And this is what is mentioned in the next. Because the letters are 3, but is Ishvara ending at those end of the 3 letters? No. So this is where, after having explained 3 aspects of Ishvara, the real nature of Ishvara is reiterated. Amatra chaturthaha avyabharyaha prapancha upashamaha shivaha advaitaha evam omkara atma eva samvishati atmana atmanam ya evam veda. Okay. So what is this chaturthaha? Somebody was asking, I think you were asking. Who was asking? She was asking. Savita. Okay. So here Omkara, all the names are from particular form. This all knowledge is contained in one given form. It's not one given form. Therefore, it says it is a matra. A matra means it is not one of the forms. It is that which contains all forms, but itself is any of those forms? No. Itself is free from being every form. So this is why it is a matra. A matra means it's not one given specific letter. And this is why it is chaturthaha, it is avyavaharyaha. Okay. The truth of that all knowledge which makes what? The physical, subtle and causal, both in terms of names and forms, possible, itself is what? The awareness. Okay. All knowledge, what is the truth of that all knowledge? Which includes names and forms?
It's free of organs.
Exactly. Right? That awareness is free. Vyavahara is, what is Vyavahara? Vyavahara only means that there is transactions. Transactions happen within what?
Physical and subtle.
Physical and subtle, right? And how do the transactions are done through what? Languages also. All our transactions are done through language, names. Okay? So that means itself is free from what? All names and forms. Avyavaharya. It's not a given object in the universe. Okay? So this is the truth of Omkara. Omkara stands for Ishvara, all knowledge. What is the truth of Ishvara? Ishvara is Avyavaharyaha. Okay? Prapancha upashamaha. What is prapancha? Because initially you think, oh, my Atma is awareness and Ishvara, this is also another problem people have with Vedanta. Very common problem. They said, oh, I am awareness and Ishvara is all knowledge, so I am higher than Ishvara. Common problem. Are you higher than Ishvara? No. Because Ishvara's reality is what? The same awareness, which is your reality. Okay? Our teacher used to keep on reminding us, okay? There is his jiva, which is awareness, which is what? Veiled by ignorance. What is mithya? What is mithya is the jivatvam. Jivatvam is the status of being an individual. What is the status of being an individual? Connection to what? Your physical body, your mind and your causal. What is the truth of jiva? is the awareness. Now, look at Ishvara. There is one aspect which is what we call Ishvaratvam. What is the Ishvaratvam?
Awareness. No.
One knowledge.
Correct. Ishvaratvam means all knowledge, and that all knowledge as manifest in what? Physical and subtle. Okay? This is what we call Ishvaratvam. What is the truth of that Ishvara? Awareness. Exactly. So please don't think that the entirety of Ishvara is mithya. In Ishvara, just as in Jiva, there is one aspect which is mithya and the truth is awareness. In Ishvara is also one aspect of Ishvara which is what? The physical, causal and the subtle is mithya. The truth of Ishvara is what? The same awareness. Don't make the entire entity of Ishvara mithya, because that will make, you will make a huge mistake. It is like saying that when the wave says, I am wave, there is one aspect of wave which is what? Water, and the other aspect which is what? The name and form which is mithya. When the ocean says, I am ocean, there is one aspect which is mithya. What is that? The totality, which is mithya. But what is the reality of this ocean? Water. Exactly. So don't make the entire ocean mithya. There is one aspect which is the appearance which is mithya. The reality of that ocean is water. We are not talking, otherwise what will happen is you will become bigger than Ishvara. That is not the right teaching. What is the teaching? Tat Tvam Asi. You are Ishvara. Please don't reduce Ishvara to something which is lower than you.
In some books I have read like this, you are saying, no? And the meaning is, at the end there is neither wave nor ocean, there's only consciousness that you are.
That is true. But that is not only the truth of I, but it is also truth of Ishvara.
Yes. But
Please.
Okay.
Because Ishvara you can't negate as an entity. All knowledge you can't negate. The truth of that all knowledge is equally awareness. Right?
Here I'm slightly confused. Ishvara has a dependent reality.
Yeah. The Ishvara, wherever there is dependent reality, there is also an independent thing. Right? So that means there is one thing which is mithya, one aspect of Ishvara which is mithya, and the other is the truth of Ishvara.
Right. But
Wherever
of
there
course
is dependent reality, there is the independent reality.
Right. Of course, awareness is the truth of everything.
Yeah. So its awareness is also truth of Ishvara.
But Omkar corresponds to Ishvara, not awareness.
This is why I say the Omkar has the fourth part, Amatra, which is the truth of Omkar.
Which you can't see.
Which you can, exactly, which is identical to your awareness. Right? This is why this verse, otherwise you will not have verse number 12.
Truth of Omkara is
Awareness. The truth of Ishvara is, in fact, this truth for Ishvara is not hidden, but it is hidden from for you. So where is the knowledge coming from? From Ishvara is making you see, see, your truth is exactly identical to my truth. This knowledge is coming from Ishvara. Because from the standpoint of Ishvara, this reality is not veiled. That's why all along Vedanta, you need grace of Ishvara. Ishvara knows its true nature. That there is this awareness which as though appears as what? All knowledge and all power with which it manifests the universe. Not confused about that. For whom it is the way? For you. Okay? So therefore, Omkara, don't think that Omkara ends with only 3 matras. Because if Omkara ended only with 3 matras, the entire entity Ishvara will become Nitya. There is the truth of Omkara, which is the 4th. This is where the identity is. The awareness, that is the truth of Ishvara, also is the awareness which is what? The truth of I. And this is why it says Amatra Chaturtha. Chaturtha is the reality of Omkara. Okay? Which is Avyavaharyaha. Okay? It is Prapancha Upashamaha, because Ishvara is doing this huge job of what? Constantly producing Virat, which is all physical forms, constantly producing what? All this subtle, and constantly using the causal in form of laws to what? Bring about physical and subtle. Okay? And that means this is what we call what? Parinami Upadanakara. Bring back what all we have studied. There is a constant change, constant shift between what? What is causal now becomes physical and subtle. What is physical and subtle now becomes causal. Constantly, within all knowledge and all power. Constantly happening, those shifts. The entire thing resolves, then again it comes into being. Constantly happening. And what is the truth of that Ishvara? Awareness, which is free from what is happening in all 3. Prapancha Upashamaha. Where the entire transactional world doesn't touch that awareness. Okay? So this is what he says. Prapancha Upashamaha Shivaha Advaitaha. You come to the same awareness. Shivaha, which is the most what? Auspicious. It is never untouched by anything, and it is Advaita. Advaita means there is no duality. Evam Omkara Atma Eva. So that means now if you understand the truth of Omkara as awareness, and if you then equate it to the 4th part of Atma, awareness, then that is exactly what he is saying. That the truth of Omkara leads you to what? That is Atma Eva. That is what your true nature is, which is awareness. Okay? Omkara Atma Eva Samvishati. Okay? Is something which is now the person knows. How does the person knows? Atmana Atmanam Yaha Veda Yaha Evam Veda. Who is the person who knows? The individual. The individual is separate from awareness? No. The teacher who is teaching, is it separate from awareness? No. The books that are given for the student to go to the teacher and learn, is it separate from awareness? The knowledge which is contained in all knowledge, which makes those books available to you, is it separate from awareness? No. The whole show is going on within what?
Expression of
It's all different expressions of awareness. Atmanam, Atmanaha Veda. The whole world is set up as what? Subject, object, different connections with subject and object through various laws. The whole thing, right, is happening within what? one Atma which is free from all. This is the end of Mandukya Upanishad. Okay? All the 12 verses are now over. Okay?
Mandukya has only 12 verses.
Only 12
Yes.
verses, right? So that means what we have seen so far is incredible. Okay? Now, what we will do is go to the 3 chapters, selected verses from 3 chapters of Gaudapada Karika, where he in his own words is describing, right, what this whole teaching is all about. So in the 2nd chapter, the emphasis is, it is called Vaitatya Prakarana. Okay? What is the purpose of this chapter? To show you how this world is mithya. Because we come to Vedanta thinking that this world is the reality. So now it will dwell further to convince you that this world that you think is real, all your problems are in this world, and all your worries are in this world, and all your afflictions are in this world, and this world is something which is mithya. Okay? So the whole, there is a very sophisticated methodology. He proceeds beautifully. How he does, that we will see.
I have two, this thing we can take up in satsang.
Yeah, but you tell me about that.
One is, I believe that representation of Om, the way we write it,
Yes.
has all these meanings associated with it.
Yeah, that
The way
you know,
we put
yes,
the
yes, when they
mantra,
put, yeah.
Every
Yeah.
part has a meaning.
That may be true, but in fact what I thought is that this is something which came much later than the Vedic. In Vedic that thing is not there, right? So that means it was imputed. Do you know, Surya? What, but we don't, because this is just a sound symbol. It's a sound symbol. Then that form was given somewhere later. It is.
Okay, the other thing is this word prapanchopshamam.
Prapancha Upashama.
Upashamam. Now in verse 10 of Gita, in that Vitarag Bhare Krodha, it had come, and there you had said that it is wise people transact according to the laws of the empirical world. So Mithya, they understand Mithya and Satyam,
Yes.
that Satyam is free.
Exactly.
Is that the meaning?
Exactly.
So
See,
how did it apply here? I got a little confused.
It did
Over
not
here.
have in Gita, it was here in
Yes.
Gita only.
It was
Also,
written.
it was also there. So how does that word and this meaning apply here in this verse?
Okay. See, what one has to be clear about is, I think this is very similar to his question, right? So that means that the prapancha is there. Prapancha is there. Prapancha means all the
reality.
physical is there. Okay. So the subtle is there. Okay, and the causal is there.
Panch is five, no?
The prapancha only means this whole transactional world. Maybe that name comes, the transactional world, because according to the Vedic model, it is made up of 5 elements.
Ah.
So that means it's well put together with these 5 elements.
Okay. Because you said a wise person not mixing up the reality.
Not mixing up reality.
That's what it means.
That's what it means. That means if you see that we are not denying physical forms, we are not denying subtle forms, we are not denying the causal connections. Okay? What we are saying is that while all of them cannot exist without awareness, they are not separate from awareness. Okay? If I am talking from the standpoint of the awareness, it is free from whatever is going on there. That is my understanding. Otherwise what happens, it's all mixed up in my understanding. Okay? Now the person who has understood that Atma is free, because awareness is always free. Okay? I'm saying that when that person has to make a decision in the world where there are names and forms, it doesn't use the Atma. Atma is always free, the person knows. But that action requires a different criteria. You see what I mean? The wise person, what makes a person wise? To know that in awareness, awareness doesn't take on any attributes. That's what makes the person wise. Okay? But can you then transpose this understanding that awareness does not ever perform any action, okay, and use it for now I said, okay, I have to go and eat now because it's 1 o'clock. Oh, Atma doesn't perform any action, so therefore I will not eat. This is a wrong logic. What is the right logic? Atma, even while I am eating, Atma never performs any action. That is the knowledge. Otherwise it's a confusion. I transpose what is real in terms of reality and I apply it to what? Empirical, which is non-understanding. Atma doesn't move to now from now, today I freeze. In fact, no matter if I'm running or I'm a running champion, Atma has never moved, is the reality. A is B, B is A, but A is never B. Knowledge. Otherwise, it's confusion. Where there is prapanchopashama and where it is not, one has to be clear about it. Otherwise, you mix up. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om